won't be able to see them even start to go into development until sometime after the fall of 2020.
That's 2 years from
Yes, yes.
now. I was hoping you'd say October this year. Martha?
Yeah, Chair Miller. Kim, at the meeting that we had, it was a real shock to everybody to find that out late in the second meeting, not even at the first, and we heard 2021. But the concern I have, and it's a huge concern, we've got a lot of money that's come in from the feds. We have our own money that we turned some back, I think it was last biennium. And we were told at that meeting that there would be no way to increase rates or co-pays for that time. And that's really concerning for me. That's been one of our big issues, is that we have childcare providers that are unable to subsist, and they're tacking into SNAP and all the other programs that you've talked about. So how can we get around the issue of being able to increase those rates? It's not fair to say we're going through an IT change and we can't increase your pay. I mean, I wouldn't do a job that I wouldn't get at least COLAs on.
Well, I think it's a good question about what are the alternative ways. What I'm saying is that the way that we currently process reimbursement, or that we process the eligibility side for the family and set the copay, that is all through our IT system. That using that method, we will not be able to make those adjustments until sometime after that date that I mentioned, the fall of 2020. For the provider portion of that payment, again, using the same system that we use now, we will not be able to make adjustments using that same system. What we discussed this morning is that I think this is where we have to really think about, well, what are the alternatives? Because one of the alternatives that we could look at is through some potentially, like in the contracting method, if we were contracting for slots, that's outside of that system, and so that's not kind of held to that same restriction, and so we could look at some options to do that. I think that that's where we're in the exploratory phase of what does that look like. I would agree that we were anticipating that we would enter a policy freeze and a code freeze later this year, and we got to a point where it was moved up because just part of the IT project, and so it's troubling for all of the programs that we have, and I agree this one is one of the ones that's high on the troubling list of now we have to come up with other options.
So Kim, I'd say it's more than just troubling. I think it's crisis, frankly. We've had some fatality issues. We've had some other issues in childcare, and to say that we can't, I think we need to figure out a way of how we can. And I mean, I'm speaking very passionately about this right now. I don't care how we do it, but our folks need to be paid what they're worth. And we need to figure it out. And we have extra money. And to say an IT problem, and we've dealt with this on home visiting. We've dealt with IT issues that have held us up. Life goes on for these families. And to say we can't, I think is unacceptable. Enough said for me.
Okay, thank you, Martha.
Yeah.
It sounds as if there are ongoing conversations about what are the alternatives.
Yep.
If IT holds up some avenues, there must be other avenues to try to address.
Absolutely, and I think Kim has talked about using contracting as a mechanism outside of that wouldn't be impacted by some of these IT changes, to really look at ways to address both affordability and supply. So I think that could be a place where we could be really targeted, again, thinking about care during non-traditional hours, care for school-age children. I think is half of ERDC funds are for school-age children, or a third of hours. So, yeah, I mean.
I'm sorry, that
yeah,
percentage was not off the top of my
Okay,
head.
yeah, probably barely mine either at the end of the
And
summer, but
certainly not in terms of the budget.
not in terms of the budget.
Because the
Right,
cost
the
per
cost.
caseload for a school-age child is much less
Cheaper,
than
right.
for younger
Yeah,
children, so.
that's true. But just in terms of, I think we have both, and this is a good segue into the Children's Cabinet, I think summer working groups. We have the ability to think first with this, new federal funding and, how we utilize those dollars and that opportunity to really address some of the priorities in terms of access to child care supports for low-income families. And then, as we have talked about in the early care and education working group, which, ERDC has been a major focus of the conversations and a bold vision and along a longer time frame of 5 years, where do we want to be with ERDC? And Kim definitely add more here, but, we were both at a meeting this morning and, think the group is really going to put forward the requirements that are really around where do we want to be with ERDC and how do we want to strengthen that program to work for providers and to work for low-income families that need child care assistance and kind of continue to put out that vision feels really important to do right now while there's clearly more conversations to explore around what the workarounds are going to be able to address these challenges. So I want to assure folks that in terms of our sort of 5-year kind of timeline of budget and policy planning and visioning around how we want to address kind of early care and education and really the child care system in the state of Oregon, we're planning with an eye towards what are the right investments that we need to make and what will those cost, and we'll continue to talk about, I think, how to operationalize those.